You have any questions for me?
No.
Do you need anything to go with you?
My phone.
Your phone? Where's your phone at?
Your car.
We're in the car.
Section.
I'm not looking for phones, I'm looking for drugs and guns.
It started like any other day in the news cycle, but by the time the sun went down, hip-hop fans and gossip blogs were buzzing with a story that no one saw coming. T.I.'s son, King Harris, was fighting for his life in the ICU after a brutal attack inside jail. The same kid who had spent the past few years building a reputation as a loud, cocky, sometimes reckless young man was suddenly laid up in a hospital bed, hooked up to machines, unconscious, with his family at his side. And while the world waited for updates, one image stood out. T.I., a father who had always tried to protect his family and keep his kids strong, was now begging desperately for his son's life. King Harris has always lived in the spotlight. Being the son of T.I. and Tiny meant cameras, interviews, social media clips, and a constant audience. From the outside, it looked like a life of privilege, money, fame, and access. But people forget that fame comes with its own pressure, and for King, it came with a restless energy. He was never satisfied just being the rapper's son. He wanted his own name, his own reputation, his own story. And that's what led him down paths that worried his family but entertained the internet. Viral fights, confrontations, brash Instagram lives. He was always a trending topic, but rarely for the right reasons. So when news broke that King had been attacked in jail, some people weren't even surprised. They said he'd been playing with fire for too long, and now he got burned. But for his family, for T.I. and Tiny, this wasn't some headline to joke about. This was life or death. One second, King was trying to navigate his time behind bars, and the next, he was lying on the cold floor of a jail cell, bloodied and broken, after being jumped in an attack that no one expected to go that far. The story came out in pieces. First, whispers on social media. People claiming they'd heard King was in trouble. Then, gossip blogs picking it up, saying there had been a fight in the jail. Hours later, TMZ-style outlets confirmed the shocking truth. King Harris had been rushed to the hospital in critical condition. The words ICU and life-threatening started flashing across headlines, and suddenly, what had seemed like another messy moment in King's controversial young life turned into something much darker. Imagine the scene. Sirens cutting through the night as King was carried out of the jail by paramedics. Guards surrounding him, trying to keep the chaos under control. The ride to the hospital, every minute feeling like it might be his last. And then the ICU, a place where the beeping of machines and the smell of antiseptic fill the air, where families pace the halls waiting for news they're terrified to hear. That's where King was taken, his body battered, his future uncertain. For T.I., the moment was crushing. Here's a man who built an entire image around strength, discipline, and family. He's no stranger to controversy himself, but through it all, he's always returned to the idea that family is everything. He's spent years telling the world that he's raising strong kids who won't fall victim to the streets. And yet here he was, watching his son, his own flesh and blood, lying unconscious in a hospital bed after a brutal jailhouse beating. T.I. didn't hold back. He went straight to social media, his voice trembling with pain. Gone was the confident, swagger-filled rapper. In his place was a father, desperate and broken, pleading with the world for prayers. "Y'all, please pray for my boy," he said, his words raw and unpolished. "He don't deserve this. He just a kid. Please pray for him to pull through." That clip went viral instantly. Fans were shocked to see T.I. so vulnerable, so stripped of the tough guy image. This wasn't a performance, this wasn't a PR stunt. This was a father's cry for help, broadcast to millions of people. And it hit hard. Even people who had spent years criticizing King felt a pang of sympathy. Because at the end of the day, no one wants to see a young man lose his life, especially not like this. Tiny, King's mother, was reportedly inconsolable. Friends of the family said she rushed to the hospital in tears, barely able to stand. She's been there before, supporting her kids through scandals and messy headlines, but this was different. This wasn't about rumors or social media drama. This was about whether her son would live to see another day. As the Harris family gathered at the hospital, the public was left waiting. Updates were scarce, the media hungry for details. Was King conscious? Was he breathing on his own? Would he recover? Or was this the end of a story that had been spiraling out of control for years? Every small piece of news, a doctor's comment, a family member seen entering or leaving, was dissected and debated online. Meanwhile, fans and fellow rappers began pouring out support. Hashtags trended on Twitter. Hashtag pray for King, hashtag stay strong Harris. Celebrities posted messages of love and encouragement. But at the same time, a darker side of the internet emerged. Some people mocked him, saying he'd been asking for this with his behavior. "You wanna act tough, this is what happens," one comment read. Others accused T.I. of failing as a father, pointing fingers and turning tragedy into blame. The debate was ugly, but it was also telling. It showed just how divided people were about King Harris. To some, he was just a reckless rich kid who needed to be humbled. To others, he was a young man struggling under the weight of fame, desperate to prove himself in a world that wouldn't let him just be himself. But beyond all the noise, one truth remained. King was fighting for his life, and no amount of online chatter could change that. As hours turned into days, the ICU became the center of the Harris family's world. T.I. was reportedly there around the clock, holding his son's hand, whispering words only a father could. Tiny refused to leave the hospital, clinging to hope that her son would open his eyes. Doctors worked tirelessly, but the severity of the injuries made it clear that recovery, if it came, would be a long and painful road. This wasn't just another viral moment. This was a wake-up call for King, for his family, and for anyone watching. Because as glamorous as celebrity life may look, it doesn't protect you from consequences. Jail is still jail. Violence is still violence. And the streets don't care who your parents are. T.I.'s plea became more desperate by the day. In one video that quickly went viral, he looked straight into the camera, his eyes heavy with exhaustion and pain no rapper usually shows. "If you got love for me, if you got love for my family, please send that love to my son right now," he said, his voice cracking. He need every prayer he can get. Those words hit the internet like a bombshell. This was the same man who once rapped about ruling the trap, about being unbreakable, a king of the South who wore his confidence like armor. But in that moment he was broken. Not for himself, but for his boy. 'Twas raw. 'Twas real. And it shook people to their core. The hip-hop world doesn't often see vulnerability like that, especially from someone like T.I., who has built a brand around strength and control. Yet here he was, stripped down to a father's purest instinct, fear for his child's life. The internet exploded with reactions. Some were sympathetic, others were skeptical, and a few were downright brutal. But no one could ignore it. This moment forced a bigger conversation. What does this mean for King Harris's future? King has always been a controversial figure, young, brash, and often reckless, with a history of viral moments and bad decisions. But this was different. This wasn't just another scandal to scroll past. This was life or death. Even if King somehow pulls through, what kind of life is waiting for him on the other side? Will he change? Will he finally wake up and understand that fame and bravado can't shield you from reality? That the flashy lifestyle, the social media clout, and the endless parties come with consequences? Or will this tragic incident be just another headline, another story in a long list of bad choices spiraling out of control? The truth is, King Harris's image is shifting. He's no longer just the loudmouth kid making noise on Instagram, or the rapper's son trying to prove himself in a world that's quick to judge. Now, he's a young man who came dangerously close to losing everything. His reckless behavior, his public fights, his brushes with controversy, they've all led to this moment, and the spotlight is brighter and harsher than ever. For T.I., this moment is also defining. No matter how many hit records he's dropped, how many business deals he's closed, or how much money he's made, none of that compares to the weight of being a father in crisis. Standing by his son's hospital bed, surrounded by doctors and machines, praying for another breath, is a humbling and heartbreaking experience. It reminds the world that beneath the celebrity status and the rap persona, there's a man grappling with the same fears and heartbreaks that any parent would face. The Harris family is holding on, united in the face of this storm. Their private pain has become public, and the world is watching and waiting for any sign of improvement. Every update, every tweet, every comment is dissected by fans and critics alike, each person hoping for a miracle but fearing the worst. And so the question hangs heavy in the air. Will King Harris pull through this tragedy and come out stronger? Can this moment be a turning point, a wake-up call that finally forces him to make better choices? Or will this be the chapter that changes the Harris family forever, a painful reminder of how quickly life can spiral out of control? But beyond King and his family, this story forces us all to reflect. Is this just a heartbreaking accident, bad luck in a harsh world? Or is it the inevitable consequence of a life marked by risky decisions, reckless behavior, and the pressures of growing up in the public eye? Is King's downfall a cautionary tale about the dangers of fame and the price of growing up too fast in the spotlight? As the world watches and waits, one thing is clear. This story is far from over. The next few days, weeks, and months will tell if King Harris can rewrite his narrative, or if this tragedy will define him forever.